What industry do you hope won't exist in 10 years? I don't know if this falls into the right category, but everything needing Wi-Fi. I bought a scale the other day that needed Wi-Fi before it could read my weight. I have a PS5 with all the media apps I need. Give me the option for a dumb TV. My washer, dryer, fridge, and oven also shouldn't need Wi-Fi to be able to do basic operations. Samsung as a company is driving me up the ing wall lately. Something like 15% of gross revenue from domestic electrical appliances comes from data on selling to FMCG, lifestyle groups, service providers, etc. Smart TVs send your usage, behavioral data back to the mothership. The data is sold to Netflix, whether you use the streaming service or not. And that data's analysis is on-sold again up the chain, combined with other data, repurposed and sold again, etc., etc. Data is used for a range of commercial and policy purposes, from product development to behavioral, marketing insights, a range of strategic objectives, commodities, logistics, predictive analysis, density mapping, etc. Source: my brother, ex-Samsung National Sales VP. I still use my 40-inch 1080p LCD Samsung from 2009 to this day, as it is a dumb TV, still works and looks great. As much as I want a 4000 and I have a Series X, I, like you with your PS5, have all my media apps on the console, so I am happy with a dumb TV. But no high-end brand TV or anything with the decent panels out there seem to come with anything without a preloaded operating system and apps. I don't want that. As someone who works in IT, I see more value in having less functionality in certain objects and having others being the main hub of everything, not any and everything being smart. I recently bought a kettle with Wi-Fi and paired it with my Google Home, and now I can just yell out to boil the kettle when I'm in the shower so I can have a cup of tea straight out the shower, or when I'm at the train station on the way home and ready when I enter the door. To be honest, it was an extra $20 for the luxury than a normal kettle, and probably pretty worth it to try automate my house. While I am fine with having options for these devices that work with smart homes and Wi-Fi, there should always be options without it. I really don't care if someone wants to have a high-tech home all linked through their Alexa or whatever is popular now, but when I can't access products without these features, or at least not being able to disable them, then I have a problem. Everything as a subscription. As a tech worker, I understand why this is so popular, but God, do I hate it. Some subscriptions can genuinely offer amazing value to consumers. My problem is the mass adoption of subscription on products and services that have no business being a subscription. Those that exist solely so companies can make more money off of you. Not everything should be a subscription. I hate the subscription thing too, to an extent. It seems reasonable to me to pay a subscription for an ongoing service that is being actively provided by somebody else. Storage, VPN, streaming, etc. Paying a regular fee for something that is in my possession and can fully work without any additional input from the creators is stupid. If I pay for a car and pay for the equipment that heats the seats, then I should get to use the seats. The car company isn't doing anything special to make sure the seats heat up. They're not paying for the resources to heat the seat. The gas I buy charges the battery that provides the electricity. Something like Office 365 is somewhere in the middle. I could just buy the software outright, but I'm getting updates with new features, which I would need to buy new software for. I'm also getting extra cloud storage. So, I pay my yearly fee so that I can use dynamic arrays and Lambda in Excel. I get it from a business perspective, but as a consumer, I just want to own most of my things. I leased a new car last year and was debating the remote start option since I live in New England. I ended up not getting it because I wasn't happy with how much it would add to my monthly payments, and that turned out to be best. 2 weeks later, they announced the use of remote start was moving to a subscription and my car would not have been grandfathered in. Can you imagine paying $800 for remote start and then 2 weeks later finding out you're going to have to pay $80.96 annually on top of that? The remote start that I expected to pay $800 for would suddenly cost me $1,050 over the course of my lease, and more if I bought out or extended the lease. I was livid, and I didn't even have the service. The thing is, people also don't remember how bad some of these things were before subscription came along. Certain tools I use as a software dev I can get for like $10 a month. When these used to be sold, it was like $500 plus for a license. Businesses will pay that, but I personally can't. I like that now I have access to things that previously I couldn't. Adobe Photoshop is the same way. I can get it for like $15 a month subscription. It's never going to be worth me buying it, and I don't want to pirate stuff like I did when I was a kid. I work in IT as well, and the ones which actually make sense to me are software where they have ongoing costs associated with providing you the service. That is software served via the cloud like Mimecast, or where you can buy once off, and then have an option to pay for yearly support to access support, updates, upgrades, etc. Some other stuff is ludicrous though. One of our customers uses a product which receives updates once every 2 years at best, and they have to pay monthly and maintain it themselves on their own servers. It doesn't even dial home for licensing, for God's sake. I haven't bought anything from Dollar Shave Club in years. I terminated my subscription and wiped my info completely in 2019. Last month, I got an email about how my order was ready to ship. I emailed and asked what was going on. The employee said I was still subscribed, but that my boxes were empty. I hadn't gotten an email from them in years. They said I was still subscribed. I told them to wipe my info, delete my subscription, just get me out of there. So, I now expect it to happen again in about 4 years. I have a printer that is subscription-based. They will automatically send you ink every month or so depending on your needs. If you cancel the subscription, any ink you have will no longer work. You can only use the ink they send you. It was cheap. I was in college, and I didn't see the part about not being able to use the ink after canceling when I bought it. I don't use this printer anymore. One calls me every couple of days around 4:30 p.m. and it is fantastic. I get to take the day's stress out on somebody deserving of it. Today, Amazon called when I bought an Apple iPhone, and if I didn't tell them not to, they would run the order through. I spent a few minutes giving them my info, accidentally missing the occasional number or letter. When he finally caught on, I got to tell him he was a waste of oxygen and start laughing as he tried to cuss me out. Great way to end the workday. Third-party student loan consultants. I used to work as a federal student loan collector for a Department of Education contractor. I have horror stories about borrowers who were purposefully deceived by these people, the worst of whom was someone who thought a consolidation she paid for completely eliminated her obligation. What these legally gray holes do is trick people into paying to have free paperwork done on their behalf. Sure, they have the tiny fine print disclosures, but they're extremely predatory and make me sick. Getting rid of them could be legislation worthy, given that they interfere with federally owned debts. Child modeling and anything to do with children being publicized on social media. I was thinking of enrolling my kids with a modeling agency, and I like what they say on the website at least. School comes first, very limited time for auditions and the job. Don't remember how much, but it was counted in minutes. And all the money is transferred in an account locked for the kids until 18. Me likes that. I wish all the agencies did that, so parents don't touch diddly squat, not even for gas money. MELMs, or pyramid schemes. Recently my wife and I threw a party for our kids and handed out invitations at school, with my wife's phone number on for ARVs. One of the kids' mums just straight up used that number to sell Avon to my wife. She never ARVed, and ended up not even coming to the party, just wanted another schmuck to buy Avon products from her. It weirded us both out too, because this mom is really quiet at school and doesn't even say good morning in passing. Speaking to other parents, she does the same on Facebook, which neither of us use. Needless to say, her number has been blocked. MELM, Avon, and pyramid schemes. I worked for an MLM company for a couple of months in 2014. It was the worst, most degrading job I ever worked. Worse still was the fact that we were effectively providing people with free solar paneling, and I was failing, not just to make a wage, but also to help the planet. For anyone interested, we went door to door in the UK signing people up for our solar paneling scheme. They got to use as much power from the solar panels as they wanted, while our company profited by selling the excess back to the grid. Then after 10 years, ownership of the panels transferred to the owners. I won't pretend that I ever saw the details past signing a client up, but as far as I could tell, it was an honest business, not counting their use of MLM staff. I thought I'd never associate with people like this, but my brother's wife is one of them, and she's a living NPC. I don't know how this guy can be around her. She doesn't even care about her own child walking for the first time. I was there when it happened. My brother was super excited and asked her multiple times to watch how their daughter walked, but she only took one glance, said, "Yeah, I saw it," in an annoyed tone, and went back to Instagram Reels. To top it off, the child was unplanned. They knew each other for 2 months. She's way older and already stated she really wanted a child, ASAP, at the very start of their relationship. Well, despite contraceptives, she immediately got pregnant, and my brother thought his life is over. He never wanted children. Now he's the one caring while she makes pseudo-deep Instagram posts mixed with melam ads for some beauty product company. She even tries selling that to me. It's not the PBMs alone that drive up the price, it's the combination of every single company in the supply chain. PBMs are often easily blamed by the other companies to hide their own drug price inflation because it's easy to blame a negotiator and call them a middleman. Don't get me wrong, I agree with you, PBMs are terrible too, but wouldn't it just be better if medical insurance went away, or even better, eliminating the industry of corporate lobbying that prevents the government from going after the medical industry? Insurance companies are free to make their own deals with pharma and manage their own formularies. PBMs exist because they can provide a lower cost of care than individual insurers can. That doesn't mean that the cost to patients is lower, however. Rebates in general play havoc with out-of-pocket expenses. Insurers don't really care that the UP expense is higher, only that their net costs are lower. Those rebates flow back to the insurer. The whole system is ED, but it's ED in the same way where PBMs aren't involved. And insurance companies are like hospital billing. It put a lot more of the blame on the insurance companies for patient costs. If lowest of patient cost and not insurer net cost was a priority, PBMs would be negotiating for that. I can't say that PBMs don't add extra administrative costs, but it's not really that simple where product cost and negotiation power is variable. That is, in the existing framework, PBMs have to save more than they cost to exist. You need to move to a framework where prices are fixed to solve it. This will probably get downvoted to hell, but all I can say is follow the money. Who benefits by their existence? As someone who works as a broker in employee benefits, I'd have to disagree. PBMs wouldn't exist if they didn't have value in lowering ARCS costs, which they actually do, at the expense of a tighter ARCS formulary. Your fight is honestly with providers, who always pretend like they're innocent. Insurance companies and ARCS suppliers. PBMs get a bad rap because they're easy to blame. Being B2B basically means they have no PR need, so they're harmed in no way from taking the blame and as such just take it on the chin. Brokers, like me, get the same treatment, but we work directly with members, solving issues with carriers, open enrollment, etc., so we actually do get on directly. We're also used by bad HR as a scapegoat when they the bed, so there have been quite a few times I was fired because some jackass fresh out of college was hired in as a senior or VP in HR, and they were way out of their depth. That, interestingly enough, actually contributes way more to group insurance costs because Thai HR always ends up churning through brokers and slowly collecting expensive value-add programs that take on bits and pieces of the work that HR should be doing. They drive prices up for the patient, and they create more work for medical staff. If they have a contract with a certain drug manufacturer, they will not cover the cost of a generic medication. If my clinic sends a prescription for a generic medication, we will get a request from the pharmacy for a prescription for a specific brand of said medication, or insurance won't pay, which is especially obnoxious because pharmacies can usually dispense whatever is cheapest if a generic ARCS is written. Don't even get me started on prior authorizations. Telemarketers. Real telemarketing died shortly after the federal do not call list. There is a reason you aren't getting phone calls from Macy's or the local furniture store or insurance companies anymore. What you are getting are scam calls, specifically scam warfare from places like India that extracted $5.8 billion from the pockets of Americans last year. And not just any Americans, usually the most infirm, elderly, disabled, kinda dumb, or otherwise compromised Americans. My absolute worst job I ever had was a call center when I first moved out on my own. It was one of the first things I applied to, and it paid almost double than what I was making previously, so I took it when I got the call asking if I was interested. I've never felt like such scum of the earth as I did with that job. My first day there, I got a lady transferred over to the company that was doing the selling, and I just broke down and started crying because I couldn't believe I just transferred an older person over who might fall victim to that. I wound up being transferred to the better team because I made the most sales out of everyone on my team during training week, so I was so pumped thinking it was going to be a different thing. I was wrong. It was the same garbage shilling. I worked there a little less than a year until me and my entire team was laid off. I was terrified not knowing what I'd do, but it turned out to be great cause. Then I got my now current job, which I love, which granted is still a call center, but it's customer service. Sorry to give a life story, just wanted to chime in. I agree. I did not feel human at that job. I felt like an evil person, and I can't see how someone does that long-term. Becuase, I've never been more depressed working there. I'm tired of stupid that preys on old and naive people. It's a hideous business practice, and I am shameful and regret being a part of it. My wife and I got 2 tickets to see Bauhaus back in September. We got the best seats available and spent about $1,200. Figured why not, it's a band we both love and they're getting old, probably won't tour much longer. Sort of a bucket list concert, so we didn't mind the cost. The day before the concert, I go to print out the tickets and it said that the show was canceled. Look it up and the lead singer canceled the tour to go to rehab. The ticket vendor sent me an email stating that we'd missed our window to get a refund, but that they would give us credit for future tickets. Had to call and at someone a bit, but finally got our money back. All ticket vendors. We're supposed to have antitrust laws to prevent this kind of monopoly gatekeeping bull, but this is the music industry. It was literally crafted and financed by the mafia. It's like playing legal whack-a-mole trying to stay on top of all the things they've done to exploit musicians and audiences. The path from musician to stage is obfuscated by many overlapping layers of contracts from different sources, but they all back each other up and protect the status quo. The venues all had to sign exclusivity to Ticketmaster to get the big names from big labels, so they have no choice. Meanwhile, the labels and Ticketmaster do everything they can to make it as hard as possible for anyone to fight back. If the musician cancels the show or skips a town because of a contract dispute, the audience inevitably turns on them, and that hurts their branding, their sales, their fan base, and many other metrics that could potentially get them dropped by their label. And if a musician doesn't have a big label, then they will be blocked from booking any gigs larger than a coffee house. But because there is still likely some place in town where a musician could perform, it's not technically a monopoly. They can always argue you can still perform at Dirk's Crab Shack down the road, but in all practical ways, it absolutely is a monopoly. The troubled teen industry. Look up Nexpo's video on Elon School and you'll see what I mean. Abusing minors for money shouldn't be an industry. I work for a psychiatric hospital in him that doesn't pull any tie nonsense, should be the standard, but we don't even use any form of mechanical restraints. Whenever we get contacted by a Thai facility, it's always a whole aggravating ordeal. Once we got a call from one nearly 1,000 miles away because they lost a kid. Apparently this particular wilderness facility does their own investigations internally, even if a kid goes missing. The thing is, when they call, it's never obvious they're calling from a facility because they're so bad at doing anything. They can't send proper ROIs, and so it drags on because we have to figure out what the hell they sent us and why. Even the notorious Provo Canyon, which how it's still open is beyond me. Whenever any of my coworkers picks up the phone from them, they have to put them on hold to gather their thoughts of what the hell. And every time after looking at the caller ID and asking who is on the phone, I say yes, that's a facility. They don't have staff, they have a goon squad. I have gone on so many tangents of how horrible these places are, and somehow before I explained it to them, my coworkers had no clue despite the red flags that are raised every time we're contacted by them. It isn't just teens. Many of the non-government facilities that claim to help people are actually primarily there to exploit and abuse vulnerable populations. Homeless shelters, for instance, are often just a facility for local churches to proselytize to desperate and effectively captive audiences. They will go as far as kicking people back to the street if they don't join their church. Some even go as far as to force people to get baptized. Many also use them for a form of slave labor that they are making money from. One I know of was shut down due to violations of the 13th Amendment, as well as violations of their tax status by forcing people to do contracted labor of various sorts such as landscaping, loading trucks and storage facilities, packing boxes to ship merchandise, etc. If these people get kicked out, they will likely die of exposure, violate parole, and many other things that make the situation coercive to the point where the courts decided it was slavery. This barely scratches the surface of the abuses seen in the charitable world of helping people who have deep personal, mental, and financial issues. I did a research about child development and people who record their child's every move. It's absolutely horrible. You'd be surprised at the amount of children that have a lower IQ, unhealthy relationships with their parents in the future, and it's straight up teaching them bad behavior. And it's bad parenting. Making your child talk into a camera for likes and views just shows where their priorities are. Parents don't have permission to record their 4-year-old doing something stupid or embarrassing. I just can't emphasize enough how horrible this is. Parents today who grew up in the digital age need to really reevaluate their choices and think about what their actions do to that child. People these days tend to think about themselves more than others. Us tax prep. Unnecessary middleman with artificially maintained necessity due to lobbying bribery. I understand that many people have a reason to use professional tax services. In fact, I'm one of them, surprise. Most people don't need this though. There should be a better alternative for the average taxpayer, especially considering how confusing and fluid the government system is. There is absolutely no reason for an individual who works a job and receives wage income needs to file a tax return in the computer age. Employers should be able to withhold the correct amount and everything is done. It would save the IRS paper and man hours and a lot of people a lot of frustration. It is done by plenty of other countries. People with rental income, self-employment income, and similar would still need to file a return. Fast fashion. It's terrible for the environment. Fashion accounts for 20-35% of the microplastic that end up in the ocean. Terrible for the workers. 93% aren't paid a living wage. Child labor and bonded labor are not uncommon, and many of the factories are unsafe. I could keep going, and the of it is, and people often don't even wear the clothes. They buy them and then bin them, or wear them once and they donate them. Around 90% of those clothes end up in a textile waste mill. It's recycled, sure, but a better solution would have it never having existed in the first place. And if you send the clothing abroad, your good intentions are crippling local markets, and the clothes aren't donated by Oxfam et al. They are sold to local textile traders who sell our old rubbish to a community who have no alternative. The textile mills all closed when our clothes showed up en masse. I have an ambition when if I get off the extreme ill health childbearing merry-go-round. At the moment I wear a lot of old pajamas. I'm not buying any clothes at all. I'm going find a tailor and have a small wardrobe of clothes that I really like and fit me perfectly made. And then I will enjoy them, and I will wear them until I die. I know a lot of people aren't in a position to do that. Fast fashion is associated with profligate purchasing of cheap clothes, and that is very much a thing. Shopping halls are so hard to watch, but fast fashion also exists because people who don't have a lot of money need clothes to go to work, and deserve to feel stylish and attractive too. And I don't have an answer for that aspect of this issue or how to support the garment workers who are being paid all, but all is slightly better than nothing. These are things we're going to have to address at some point anyway, because the current model is not sustainable. Might as well find solutions now. Poker machines, greyhound racing, and horse racing in Australia. They really do crank those racehorses out as fast as possible and put them in high-intensity training and racing, often at just 2 years old. Lots of people say you should wait until at least 3 or 4 to ever get on your horse. The bloodlines are ruined and all they care about is who can run the fastest at 2. Bad hoof genetics? Who gives a? He made the breeding owners some money. The problems they'll have down the road doesn't matter to them. And as soon as they stop making money or get injured from the intense training, usually they're injured, they sell them for dirt cheap and often don't care where they end up. I have an ex-racehorse that isn't even 5 years old yet, so technically not even fully grown, and he already has arthritis. Him getting a hairline fracture and not being able to race for a few months meant feeding him with no monetary return, so he was sold. Who knows how much longer he would have had to endure racing if he hadn't been injured and retired. But life after racing many times is even worse if the right people don't get them, especially if they were permanently injured. I don't know anything about greyhound racing, but I'm sure it's similar.